Welcome to Chamber Chat. I'm John Tayer, President and CEO of the Boulder Chamber. And today we have a special edition of our Chamber Chat bi-weekly conversations, because today follows on the tragic incident that occurred in our community, the shooting at King Soopers. And whether you call it a tragedy, an assault, murder, there's no question that our community has felt the sting of one of the mass shootings that so often we've read about in communities across the country. But yet this time it happened right in our town at our neighborhood shopping center. And we know that we are going to grieve for a great deal of time for the loss of a hero like Officer Talley and those 9 other victims of this terrible assault. And we also recognize that we're going to continue to grieve collectively for many years to come. But at the same time, just as we light the Boulder Star and what that symbol reflects for our community, we will remain united and we will be resilient in the face of this assault on our community. And we're fortunate today to have a guest who has been helping to lead the response and the beginning of our recovery efforts from this assault. And that is Chris Meschuk, who is the interim city manager. So we will have a chance in a second to talk with Chris about this incident and also some of his experience in the interim city manager role. But before we do, just a couple of quick special announcements. So first of all, we will have a special Business Women's Leadership Group meeting, and that will be on April 14th. And that will be a chance for us to come together as a community to have conversation about the challenges that this has faced for our community and from the grieving that we have faced, and to just talk about our sense of need for all of us to support each other. We also note that April is Volunteer Month, and so our staff team has been collecting volunteer opportunities from across organizations, from the City of Boulder to other nonprofits, where you as individuals can support the community, which also is a great way to help in the grieving process, coming together as one community. So first of all, I just mentioned that if you have a volunteer activity that you want to share with us and have us offer at this BWLG gathering, make sure to send it to us at the information that's posted. But also please join us for this April 14th special meeting of the Business Women's Leadership Group and help all of us heal together after this experience. I also want to note that we have released the edition of our Boulder Chamber Today for 2021, packed full of information about what we've been doing at the Boulder Chamber, all those activities, and then resources to support your business success and things that we as a Boulder Chamber are doing to make sure that your business is healthy and that our economy is strong and that we're doing it all for the good of our community. And if you're interested in getting into that publication in the future, make sure to reach out to Scott Furley, our Member Relations Director, for the 2022 edition, because we want to make sure those who are interested have the opportunity to be visibly connected to this very valuable publication, Boulder Chamber Today. And then finally, if you're looking for additional news associated with the terrible shooting incident, as well as other news around town, make sure to check out our social media site. We're posting all the information on support activities, as well as other information important to our business leaders. So enough about the Boulder Chamber specific activities. I want to turn it now to our chance to have a conversation with Chris Meschuk, who has been serving in the interim city manager role since Jane Brodigan stepped down. And I will say that probably nobody could ever have anticipated the type of experience that Chris would have stepped into. And I just note that he has handled the leadership role so excellently, and I just want to compliment him for that, as well as just the support team he has at the city. Just have provided an excellent resource for our community during this tragic time. But I just want to ask you, just reflecting on this tragic shooting event, what are your reflections on that, and what have been the focus of your response and recovery efforts?
Yeah, thanks, John, and thanks for the opportunity to sit down and chat a little bit with you, and for the kind words as well. And I think you said it best as you started, which is no community wants to join the circle of communities that have had to go through this. And sadly now we're one of those communities. This last now week and a half has been really indescribable is still the only word I have for it. There are so many things that have happened, and what continues to kind of inspire me is just the way that everyone is working together. So to your question around kind of what this city's response has been, it's been some really long days in our emergency operations center, in our public safety building with the police department, you know, from the moment that I got the first phone call that there was an active shooter at the King Soopers, to that first night when we turned out the lights at the EOC at midnight. The 26 agencies, I think it is, that came and helped our community in responding to this was just incredible. And the level of willingness to help and coordination. But I will say, you know, in that moment where then you lay out here's our plan and our response that we had pre-thought through for a mass casualty incident, it's overwhelming at first. And then you move into action, and it's what are those things that we need to do, and what's the team of people that we need to help support this. And that's been the piece that continues to really honestly inspire me each day, is to see the 150 plus people from local to federal agencies that are investigating this has been really incredible. And then the collaboration that these agencies have brought. So working with our local city and county resources, as well as the DA's office, being able to provide victim advocates for each of the families, as well as a public information officer, to the work to stand up and now operate the assistance center. And King Soopers has done an incredible amount of work to help make that a success, to be able to support all of our community members, whether you were there that day or not. To then just the logistical support around the memorials that are happening around town, the vigils that have occurred, and being able to create a process where anyone could reach out and say, well, we're going to plan a vigil, and we were able to then support from a logistical standpoint whatever is needed, from whether it was presence or speakers, to traffic control, porta potty rentals, whatever it was necessary to be able to help our community come together safely, and begin to grieve and begin to heal. And then the coordination around communications. Our Director of Communications and Engagement, Sarah Huntley, has been operating what's called a Joint Information Center, or JIC. And what that is really a way to coordinate communications across all of the investigative agencies. And it's that response, that continued work, and that's really what the city's role has been outside of the actual investigation itself, which obviously will continue for a long time. But it's really been that team coming together that's been really incredible.
It's fascinating. And as you sort of indicate, a lot of folks stepping into non-standard roles in order to direct the response, and also then to maintain the continuity of support from the city for all different types of functions that are again non-typical, and hopefully we would not, our community would not have to experience this.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of non-typical, you stepped into this interim city manager role, and it's an enormous responsibility. And I just start by thanking you for taking on that role for our community while we search for a new city manager. But I wonder, Chris, if maybe you would mention, what maybe were some of your biggest surprises in that role, and then what are some of the key learnings that you take with you?
That's a great question. And it's been an honor to serve in this role and to be able to support the community as a whole. I've had a career at the city that has given me the opportunity to serve in many different capacities, and this one has truly been an honor. And there's been really interesting learnings and growth. Several people have brought that up, and there's times where the growth or the learning curve it's pretty straight up, but that's experience that has been just phenomenal to be a part of, and a lot has happened in our community in this time since the end of October when I stepped in to serve, and there's been challenges from being active in the COVID pandemic, and what was then in the fall kind of another resurgence of COVID. They got back near kind of locking back down, to the wildfires that were just wrapping up. Some of the surprises I'll share. My first night, I'm like 4 hours into being the interim city manager, and I get a phone call from our communications folks that there's an active SWAT incident in the community happening, and I needed to be aware of it, and they would keep me posted on how that would play out. And I spent that first night, with my cell phone ringer on next to me in bed. So those are the 24/7 things of this role that it's part of the job. Night number one was a stark reminder of that. To some of the hard conversations we've had in our community around homelessness and encampments and the amplification of that through COVID. Sadly, we've had 2 employees that have died in this time frame, one through this shooting and one prior to this, to then the riot on the Hill that was party turned kind of riot, to this mass shooting. So there's been lots of hard things, but there's been a ton of good things that have happened too. Some really incredible community conversations that have happened on major projects, to navigating COVID and really striving for better equity outcomes, and how we're starting to see that play out in partnership with Boulder County Public Health around vaccine distribution. We have one of the greatest equity indicators in Colorado, which has really been a focus of ours to make sure that we started to fix those disparities. To then the internal work of continuing to grow the city's leadership team, the directors. We have an absolutely incredible team right now of folks. We've had some incredibly amazing hires, and continuing to build and grow that team has been really, I think, a driver for me. And as we continue to think about what does the future of the workplace look like, kind of what we envision will be a bit of a hybrid mode of working in the future. So all of those are things that have been really interesting. I've had lots of other interesting experiences. I think one of the most unique is I had to sign a quitclaim deed for internment rights in Columbia Cemetery. Never would have thought that was something that I would do. So there's all kinds of interesting things that come with this job.
Yeah, I would say that's not one that I had on my list of anticipated experiences you would have had. So good to know for the future for me. I would want to know that, who I go to for that kind of a quitclaim deed. So I will just then ask you, we've been, Chris, through so much. And you mentioned, the riots on the Hill. I didn't even have it on my list, but you just think about the COVID experience. of the past year, and then obviously this horrible shooting, mass murder. And I just wonder, those things behind us, and now looking toward the future, what is your vision for our community's recovery from these experiences of the past months and year?
It's going to be a long road, but I think partnership is probably the key to what our future looks like, what our roadmap forward looks like. I think the collaboration that we have across the community as we're continuing to navigate and then hopefully now start to exit the pandemic has been really key. So thinking about in our community, how do we continue to look at starting to restore events, activities, visitors that may be coming to our community. I think on many folks' minds is what does the future of retail look like? What does the future of offices look like? And it's a big question mark that I think is looming out there. So starting to think about, what does that look like if it kind of comes back to kind of more what we have been used to, or what happens if it looks a little bit different? What if employers engage in less physical workspace, more virtual workspace? So I think as I think about that, I think of the history of the community and the history of how we've adapted over time and done that in a really conscious way. And so I think all of us working together, that's going to be a bit of that vision. And then I think it kind of broader than that, even what comes to mind for me is really the city's vision statement of service excellence for an inspired future. And if we really continue to unpack that, the service excellence piece of how we deliver our services in the most operationally excellent way for the community, and continuing to enhance those services. And then the inspired future portion is really, it's that Boulder ethos that we were just talking about of looking forward to how we can shape things. How can we take last week's tragedy that has been thrust upon our community and take that and do good. And that's, as you were giving the intro, even thinking about next month being volunteer month, how can we take what right now is the community coming together, bonding together, healing together? How can we carry that energy forward? How can we increase our volunteerism in the community, and our engagement in whether it's community issues or community organizations? That's part of my hope as we go forward. And I'm really excited. I think the city council has hired an incredible new city manager, and I'm very much looking forward to working with her and being able to learn from her leadership and partner with her. So I think when I think about the future, I think the future is bright in our community.
That's beautiful, Chris. And I will say that you touch on all issues that are important to the Boulder Chamber. It's the adaptation to the evolving economic condition. It's the need to build off of these tragedies and do better, do good with the lessons that we've learned from this experience. And then also working with wonderful people like you. And as you mentioned, this new city manager. So Chris, again, I thank you so much for stepping into this interim city manager role during a very challenging period for our community, for your stewardship of the community and leadership of the excellent City of Boulder staff team through these tragedies and the COVID crisis. And now looking forward to those better times ahead that you allude to. So thank you so much, Chris.
I appreciate it, John, and I really appreciate the kind words. And I do. I love this city. Many folks that live here or work here love this city as well. And so let's take that and go do great things.
All right, we will rock on. Wait, thank you, my friend. Well, that's going to conclude our chamber chat for this week. And I will only conclude by saying, yes, we have been through very difficult crisis compounded by this tragic mass murder. And I know that it weighs on all of us. And so first thing I'll say is, if you are struggling with it, please reach out to your friends, to your colleagues, but also the professional services, and those resources are on the Boulder Chamber website. But make sure you take care of yourself. But second, as Chris alluded, we're going to get through this. We are going to come out stronger, united, resilient as a community, and we're going to make sure that we build toward a brighter future. So with that, I close with the standard reminder, we are still in the COVID-19 crisis. We still need to abide by the health standards. So I will ask you again, make sure to keep the distance, make sure to abide by the guidance of our public health officials. And one of those is continue to wear that mask. And we'll see you next couple of weeks on Chamber Chat.